Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about a tragic case involving a 10-year-old boy called Dylan Freeman. Viewer discretion is advised. In the beginning of last year, 2020, our lives would be turned upside down. When the pandemic swept across the world, everything as we knew it just changed. Lockdown was put into place in March in the UK, and this would have devastating consequences for so many people. Not only were we restricted on being allowed to go outside, we were allowed out for 1 hour a day. And that was just for exercise. But accessing help from local authorities would become even more difficult now. Doctors and hospital appointments, they were either cancelled or you could no longer speak to someone face to face. You had to just speak to them on the phone. And this is still the case now in many places. Because people were stuck in their homes, they were even more at risk of being abused or even murdered. But what if you're a single mum with a history of mental illness and you're raising your disabled son who needs care 24 hours a day and your world just shut down? This was Olga Freeman's reality. 40-year-old Olga Freeman worked as a lawyer and she was born in Russia but moved to the UK. Olga met Dylan Freeman, a man she would go on to marry, and this would be in 2007. Then, by 2010, Olga gave birth to their son, Dylan. They lived in West London in Acton. Dylan was diagnosed with autism, global neurodevelopmental delay, and a progressive myopia. Dylan also had significant difficulties with his speech and communication, and he also had Cohen syndrome. Olga would take care of her son most of the time, like any mother would really. Dean worked as a successful celebrity photographer, and his work would take him all over the world, and Dylan, when he got older, would travel around with his dad. Sadly, the marriage had broken down, and Olga and Dean ended up divorcing in 2017. And as you can imagine, this was a really stressful time for anyone. But with Dylan's complex needs and Olga and Dean having to sell the family home and split the money, Olga and Dylan moved into a flat in Cumberland Park. This is in Acton as well, and Dean is said to have moved to Spain. He would always financially help Olga and Dylan as much as he possibly could, but he didn't live in the same place as them anymore. Dylan would attend a special needs school 5 days a week, and Olga was able to relax and recharge while Dylan was at school. Dylan loved this school. He would go swimming and do a whole range of different activities. Olga adored her son and would care for him every day from the moment he was born. With support, Olga was able to care for Dylan and herself. She loved being a mum. But by March 2020, Dylan was now 10 years old. When the pandemic hit and lockdown was enforced, Dylan's school withdrew his place, and Olga had to take care of Dylan at home. As you can imagine, this impacted Dylan and Olga's life greatly. With the tight restrictions in place and Dylan's need for around-the-clock care, Olga was starting to feel worn out. Olga had a history of depression and anxiety, and she was struggling with arthritis in her back and her knees. Things started to get a little bit tough for Olga, and she started to struggle, but she loved her son and she wanted the best for him. She tried so hard to get the help that he needed. Dean wasn't able to relieve the pressure for Olga either, as he was in Spain when the lockdown came into force, and this meant he wasn't even allowed to enter the country. In June, Olga reached out to the local authorities, social services and the council, and she asked her doctor also for help. She said that she was stressed and she was struggling and her back and her knees were playing up. In June, Olga reached out to the local authorities, including social services and Ealing County Council. She also asked her doctor for help. She said that she was stressed and she was struggling. She was struggling with Dylan and her arthritis. And she was also worried because on some occasions, some of the carers that would come and help out They didn't even turn up on certain occasions. Olga would ask Ealing Social Services for help with funding for the care for Dylan. At the point, Dylan was actually allowed 12 hours a week funding, which would relieve Olga. Now, if you think about 12 hours in a whole week, that's no time at all. Olga did have a carer that would do round about 30 hours a week, but I believe this was her friend. Although she did get paid for 12 hours, she would always stay on and do more to help out Olga. Even though Dylan was able to eat finger food by himself, he did need assistance with all of his meals. Dylan also, because of his needs and his disabilities, he would have challenging behaviour a lot of the time. He had medication to help settle him down and to help him sleep, but this didn't work and he would spend most of his night up awake. Now, the neighbours did hear him making some kind of loud noise throughout the night, most of the time. Olga tried everything she could to help Dylan. She brought him special pillows in hope that he would actually be comfortable and able to sleep the night, but nothing worked. Dylan's eyesight was deteriorating progressively, and Olga would carry Dylan around on her hip, and he's a 10-year-old boy. Now, Olga brought things for the garden to hope that Dylan was able to sit in the garden and have fun. She didn't like the fact that he couldn't go to school, so she tried whatever she could to make his life better. By July, Olga had spoken to her doctor again. Now this time she begged for his help. The doctor listened and he wrote her a letter. The doctor said that Olga was under immense stress. She wasn't sleeping and she was in great pain because of arthritis. He also said that in a letter that he demanded that she had more hours of care from social services. He described her as really struggling to manage his care, and she was worried that she'd fall asleep in the bath because she was relaxed. She was also worried about burning out because she didn't have enough support. And the doctor said that he strongly suggests that Dylan had more hours of care, even if it was just while the school was closed. He just needed more support, and so did Olga. July the 7th, Olga told social services that she was under significant pressure and she felt forgotten, and she said that she wasn't functioning mentally anymore. A couple of days after this, the doctor emailed social services and described Olga as struggling hard. Olga was at her wit's end and heading for a breakdown. Olga only ever wanted the support that her son needed. She loved him so much she just wanted him to get help. Dylan did have one carer, but she quit because she said that it was too hard and she just couldn't handle Dylan's behaviour. Edita, this was Dylan's carer and also Olga's friend. She was paid to look after Dylan for 12 hours a week. Now, she would often stay a lot longer than this just to help out Dylan and Olga. She saw Olga deteriorating as well. Dylan had challenging needs and everyone at this point just needed help. Dylan was supposed to go to Spain to visit his dad and spend summer with him, but because of lockdown that wasn't going to happen anymore. And at the beginning of August, the doctor had to chase up some emails to social services and the local council stating that Olga's mental health had vastly deteriorated. On the 9th of August, Edita, Dylan's carer, and Olga's friend came to the flat. When Olga started to talk about the second Jesus, this worried Edita, so she decided that she would record what Olga was speaking about. She did this because she thought that the evidence would back up Olga's mental health and then Olga would get the help that she so desperately needed. Olga had already decided that she no longer wanted to deal with social services anymore. Because they wasn't helping her, she didn't want to speak to them anymore. August the 13th, Olga started to say things like she was going to save the world, and she was referring to Messiah, saying that God was inside her and reborn. Olga believed that she was getting the knowledge and instructions through her phone, and the messages would communicate through the internet, Olga was able to then see photographs that would pop into her head. By the 14th of August, Olga sent a WhatsApp message to one of her neighbours stating that she had been chosen by God to save the world and it was time to act. On the 15th of August, Edita had come to the flat to care for Dylan. Now, she could only stay for the morning because she had to go to her other job at 2:30 in the afternoon. She couldn't stay no later than that. Olga begged her to stay longer, but she just couldn't do it. She had to go to her other job. Then later that night, just before midnight, Olga called Edita and said that she needed to come and pick her up. She needed to take her away from the home. Edita was so worried about Olga, so she went to see her and she would arrive at her house around 1 a.m. Olga had messaged a neighbour again saying she was done. Olga had then said to Edita that herself and Edita should go to Jerusalem and she had booked tickets to fly out there with her. And she also told her that she had just taken Dylan's life. On Olga's computer screen, it showed that she had booked 2 tickets to Jerusalem for herself and her friend. She also said to Edita, "Now the purpose for Messiah was to kill my own child. I only found out about this today and what I had to do. I had a dream. Yes, it was terrible. Whatever I do is meant to be. The evil that looks like good must be destroyed." Olga also said that what I did, sometimes when something's good, it can also be really evil. Olga continued to speak to Edita. Then Edita said that they should go for a walk. She wanted to get her out of the house. Olga then walked to the police station with Edita. Olga confessed to the police officer, "I just killed my child, softly, with dignity and kindness." The police officer took Olga in, and then they went to Olga's flat. They discovered Dylan's lifeless body, tucked up, surrounded by all his favourite toys. Olga had given Dylan his medication to help him sleep, which didn't work. She then placed a sponge into his mouth to stop him from breathing. She tied her bra around to secure the sponge into his mouth. There was also medication sellotape and some sponge left on the floor. A post-mortem examination at Great Ormond Street Hospital recorded Dylan's cause of death as upper airway obstruction. Olga was arrested for the murder of her 10-year-old son, Dylan Freeman. Olga appeared at the Old Bailey via a video link. Now, the psychiatric unit that she was in, she spoke and she did admit manslaughter due to diminished responsibility. Olga's defense lawyer said that Olga was suffering from depressive illness and psychotic symptoms. The judge said that the expert psychiatrists who had met and assessed Olga included one that treated her at the secure unit she was actually in. They all agree that this was one of those rare and desperately sad cases when a devoted parent commits a shocking act of violence toward a precious, innocent, beloved child while completely out of their right mind. That you loved your son and you sacrificed yourself for him, I have no doubt. The burden of caring for a severely disabled boy was one that you took on as a mother, out of love and duty. Those impenetrable ties, I can see that, and I can see how you discharged it faithfully for years. You fought for your son to have the best support, and your own life was bound by this. But it was a burden that took an enormous toll on you. Although he was not able to tell you so, I am sure you were well loved by him, and there was many joys in your life that led you together. As a family, photographs I have seen today. I have no doubt at all that you were a remarkable, loved and dedicated mother to a vulnerable child until multiple pressures overwhelmed you and your mind was swamped by a destructive depressive illness with psychotic elements. Having lived a blameless, indeed credible life, with no previous episodes of violence of any kind, you intentionally killed Dylan on the 15th of August. It should be recognised that Dylan was an indirect victim of the interruptions of a normal life caused by COVID-19 pandemic. I conclude that the retained responsibility you bear is low because of what you did to Dylan was manifestation of an illness. Now, in other words, your mental disorder at the time largely and perhaps completely explains the killing. I will not lose sight of the fact that you, too, have lost your son. On the 11th of February 2021, at the Old Bailey, the judge ordered Olga Freeman to be detained indefinitely in hospital where she could receive mental health treatment. She said that she would stay there without a time limit. Accordingly, I make a hospital order with restrictions without a time limit under Section 37 and 41 Mental Health Act in 1983. A victim impact statement from Dylan Freeman, Dylan's dad. He said that he believes the UK government had failed people with mental health difficulties and special needs, leaving them without a voice. In his view, in this country, the government and past governments have under-supported people with mental health conditions and special needs. And he said that he feels it is inadequate support and funding, and the death of his son is a clear reminder to him of this. Dylan said that his son was beautiful, bright, inquisitive. He was artistic, and he loved to travel. He loved art galleries, and he loved to swim. The prosecutor, Gareth Patterson QC, said that an independent serious case review was well underway, including the handling of Olga Freeman's case, investigating alleged failures to offer significant support to a struggling mother. Ealing Council's role will no doubt be considered elsewhere, and we understand that there are multiple agencies' serious case reviews as well, under independent chairs, which is expected to conclude shortly. It is also a timely reminder of the plight of thousands of families across Britain who are caring for children with severe disabilities and special educational needs throughout the pandemic. Many of them were cut adrift by the government's Emergency Coronavirus Act in last March, which would have been the first lockdown in the UK, which was relaxed. The legal local authorities to provide care lay out in the Children's Individual Education, Health and Care Plans, EHC, and instead require them all to do everything they can to continue to meet the existing duties. Let me know what your thoughts are on this case in the comments below. Thank you all ever so much for watching and sticking by me while I'm being so inconsistent. I will see you all again soon. Much love, Lindsay.